What is up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in to After the Buzzer. My name is Suneil. Over to the, right of me is Amin, the Dream. We are talking everything that's hot in sports this week, and we all know what went down starting yesterday, my man Amin. It is NBA free agency frenzy. So we're going to go through all the hot topics about the NBA today. How you feeling, my guy?
I'm good. I'm good. This is me and Sunil's weekly show called After the Buzzer. We will, next week and the weeks to come, we will be discussing football and basketball and just things that are hot in sports, like you said. But this week, we're mainly focusing on NBA because yesterday was the start of free agency, and there's been a lot of crazy moves and a lot of players that have been getting overpaid, in my opinion. So, I'm excited to talk about it. So, let's just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Starting off, let's go to the Bay Area. Steph Curry re-signed with the Warriors, 4-year, $215 million. What's your thoughts on this signing, on the re-sign?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Steph Curry is the best player that they have. This is his second $200 million contract, which is insane. Good for him, man. I think this is just you had to do it. Obviously, Steph's the face of that franchise. He's still playing at a very high level. I think 4 years he'll still be, 36 at the end of this contract. So I think you just had to do it. He's your best player up for a contract extension. You give it to him, give him the max, and that's pretty much what they did.
Yep, I mean, he's obviously their best player. I mean, Klay Thompson's coming off that ACL injury, torn ACL. I also think he had a torn Achilles, if I remember correctly. So 2 years back-to-back, he's had injuries. I mean, Steph Curry, even last year, he's 30-plus years old, and he was balling out for the Warriors last year. I mean, if it wasn't for that lucky LeBron James shots that he made, buzzer beater, I mean, the Warriors had a very good chance of beating the Lakers. Okay, you had a very good chance of beating the Lakers. Okay, when I saw that shot, that LeBron James shot, I was like, no, like that's not going in. He made it, and I was like, oh, the Warriors are done. But yeah, I mean, this is a second $200 million contract. I mean, he's earned the contract. I mean, he's been balling out for the Warriors. He's, in my personal opinion, the best point guard in NBA right now. So, I mean, he deserves the contract, and obviously, and any team wants a guy like Steph Curry on their team. So I'm happy the Warriors got the deal done, and he's there for 4 more years. So, moving on to the next topic is, the Bulls. I mean, the Bulls some people are saying they're trying to compete against the Nets. But one of the Bulls' biggest moves was today, where they did a sign and trade with the Spurs for DeMar DeRozan, 3-year, and then he signed with them for a 3-year, $85 million contract. So what's your thoughts on this move by the Bulls?
Yeah, I mean, DeRozan was one of the premier free agents this season. A lot of teams were looking at him. A lot of teams were that didn't have cap space, were trying to figure out a way to do a sign and trade. I actually like the move, not on its own, but with everything else that the Bulls have been doing. Obviously, they got Lonzo over there. They got Alex Caruso from the Lakers over there. And along with some of the trades they made last season, with getting a guy like Nikola Vucevic from Utah, from Orlando, that squad looks really, really nice. They have some really young talent that they've drafted in the past few drafts that I think could be good. So I like it. I think he's going to fit well with what the Bulls are trying to build over there. And I expect them to make a big turnaround and be a playoff team this season in the East.
Yup, I mean, what the Bulls did this offseason, I didn't expect it because the Bulls usually don't do that much in free agency. But you went out and got a guy like Lonzo Ball, amazing defender. You got a point guard. You add help. You give help to Zach LaVine because Zach LaVine was the best player until they added Vucevic in the last season. But I mean, that team could be scary.
You just cut out.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. I was just making sure. Okay, so so you added a guy like DeMar DeRozan. You have Levine on the team. You have Lonzo Ball. And some people even are making jokes on Twitter and stuff. Alex Caruso turning into MJ, Same thing with the bald and everything. He's going to be the MJ for the Bulls. I mean, they had a pretty good free agency. I mean, with all they added, they have a pretty good starting five. And they also have some good young players like Kobe White, who they drafted at UNC, Patrick Williams, who they drafted last year. So they have some pretty good young talent also. So you guys better watch out for the Bulls because I think they could be a potential playoff team next year. And they're building a pretty good thing in Chicago right now. So, yeah,
I
I'm happy
agree.
with the Bulls did. Moving on, I'm a Lakers fan, so as a Lakers fan, this free agency, I've been getting hyped as a Lakers fan. Not only did we add Russell Westbrook, we also signed guys like on the bench like Dwight Howard, Kendrick Nunn, Malik Monk, but we also got Carmelo Anthony to the Lakers. He signed a 1 year with us. So, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it fits with what the Lakers, front office is really trying to do. Obviously, they brought the big move is bringing in Russell Westbrook, so you have your big three of Westbrook, LeBron, and AD. So when you have that type of collection of talent, it also hindered what they could do in free agency as far as paying people. But they knew that they needed to bring guys in that would take the veteran minimum and that could shoot. Carmelo Anthony upped his 3-point shooting to over 40% last season. He played really solid with Portland, being a starter and sometimes coming off the bench. I think with the Lakers, he'll be more of a bench player, but it's a good transition. Obviously they lost Kuzma, who was supposed to be that forward punch off the bench. Carmelo now could come in and be that type of player. They brought in, I like a lot of the moves they brought in. Obviously, they brought in guys like Trevor Ariza, who was a 3-and-D wing, shot 35% in threes last season. Wayne Ellington, who shot 42% in threes last season. Kent Bazemore, who shot 41% in threes. So everybody that they brought in are all, 40+% shooters with, the exception of a few. Re-signed Talon Horton Tucker, who I believe will probably move into the starting role. And yeah, I think that it's a good fit. Obviously Carmelo Anthony isn't the same Carmelo Anthony from his Denver days and his Knicks days, but he still can get you double-digit points off the bench. He still has a lot of experience, leadership, and even though defense isn't something he's known for, he still is a big body that could guard guys on the wing, at least give some resistance. So I'm overall, it's a cheap deal. If you could get Carmelo Anthony on the veteran minimum, I think it's worth it. West Brick, man, we did that on purpose, baby. It's all blue today.
Yeah, all blue. We had the blue shirt, we got the blue background light. So let's just make it all blue for today. But Carmelo to the Lakers, I'm very happy with this move, especially as a Lakers fan. He's still a pretty darn good player for that team. And when we added Russell Westbrook to the Lakers, people said, hey, the Lakers don't have depth. They've been adding players like Kendrick Nunn, Malik Monk to add to that depth in that bench, right? Because that same thing people said about the Nets. They didn't have depth in the bench. And Lakers are doing stuff to help that. And they've been bringing guys like Kendrick Nunn, Malik Monk, Carmelo, Dwight Howard, who was there that season that they won the championship. And then he went to Philly, and he's also back. With that Lakers team, I expect the Lakers to make the finals if they're healthy. With all that talent that you have on the roster, I definitely expect the Lakers to make the finals this year. And only way I don't see them making the finals is if that team is injured. But they definitely should make the finals next year with all the free agent moves they made. So I'm very happy with Carmelo Anthony to the Lakers.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are missing why Russ was brought to the team. A lot of people are saying that's not a good fit, but I think he fits perfectly in the sense of what the Lakers need. Lakers last season would have been in the finals if it wasn't for health issues, right? So Russell Westbrook is one of the greatest regular season players of all time in the NBA. So he is somebody who goes hard every single game, who can take a lot of pressure off of guys like AD, guys like LeBron, so that the regular season they can still play competitive with keeping their minutes low, even resting them on certain days. And a lot of the pieces that they brought in are interchangeable. A lot of guards, a lot more guards than we had last season. I'm assuming everybody they bring in with the last three pieces that they have are going to be big guys as far as like forwards and wing guard 3-and-D type players. And I think it's all interchangeable where you could have a constant team of scorers that could, that could go out there and play big minutes to rest up the stars so that playoff time comes. Everybody's healthy, everybody's in sync, and we got some consistent shooters now, which is something that the Lakers haven't had in a long time.
Yep. And someone said here, if the Lakers don't make the finals next season or have the number 1 seed next season, it'll be considered a huge failure. I mean, number 1 seed, yeah, but I mean, even if they don't make the number 1 seed, if they still make the finals, I mean, that's still a successful season. And last year, I even expected, with the healthy roster, I expected the Lakers to make the finals, and I also expected to see the Nets. I mean, the Bucks won last year against the Nets, but I mean, Kyrie was injured. Harden also came off an injury the series before, so I mean, if both of those teams can stay healthy, those teams are finals contenders this year. So it all depends on health. Even if they don't make the 1 seed, if they still make the finals and they still make a playoff run, I think as a Lakers fan, I'm happy with that. So Josh Mangold, shout out Josh Mangold. I mean, this man has been posting pack openings, and he's also doing tonight at 8:30. So go subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. Show this man some love. He is a GOAT, so show this man some love. But moving on to another signing that was in the NBA today was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not that many people know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but if you truly watch the NBA and you're an NBA fan, you know how good Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is. He plays for the Thunder. So what's your thoughts on this signing?
Yeah, once again, a no-brainer. He's the best player that they have. They signed him to the max deal, the most that they could give him. He was a high draft pick with the Clippers. They traded him, with all those picks to get PG onto the team. I mean, I don't think it's unfortunate because I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a really great player. However, his talent is being wasted in Oklahoma City. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. They're just stockpiling young players and draft picks and whatnot. And they play in the West, which is a gauntlet. Really hard to get into the playoffs. You have really good teams that, don't even make it. So, I mean, he's just getting paid. He's doing what he needs to do, making sure that he's, taking care of his family and, stacking up as much paper as he can. And then maybe later on, he'll probably start, ring chasing and maybe make some decisions as far as going to a team where he could actually win at. But right now, he's just taking the max money as he should.
Yep. And I mean, his talent's definitely being wasted in OKC. I mean, he definitely deserves the contract because I mean, he's one of the best. He's the best player that you have on OKC, but his talent's definitely getting wasted in OKC. I mean, like you said, the West is getting tougher. I mean, the West is stacked. Jazz are playoff team. Warriors, if Clay comes back healthy next year, they're a playoff team. I mean, there's a bunch of playoff team. Lakers. I mean, even the Clippers are a playoff team. The Suns are a playoff team. It's tough to win in the West. And I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he definitely deserves the money, but his talent is definitely getting wasted in OKC. And I definitely wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years if he demands a trade or asks for a trade because, I mean, his talent's definitely getting wasted in OKC. I mean, I feel bad for him, but he definitely deserves the money. This guy's question, Diago, he said, do you think Kawhi is staying or leaving?
I think he's definitely staying. I mean, if you look at the what's going on after the free agency, there's not too many teams that have the cap space to absorb Kawhi at his rate. I think he's just renegotiating a deal with the Clippers, and he's gonna extend that deal. He's injured, so we don't even know how much he's gonna be able to play this season with the type of injury. But he fought so hard to get out of San Antonio. He was trying to get back to LA, Southern California, where he grew up. To just leave after 2 years just wouldn't make sense. He got a guy like Serge Ibaka to come to the team. He got PG to come to the team. To just leave them after a year of playing with them or 2 years playing with them, I think would be even for somebody like Kawhi Leonard, who you don't always know where his heart's at. I think he's more loyal than just to bounce on a team after he pretty much recruited all these guys to come to the team.
Yeah, I think he's personally staying in LA. And I mean, there's many free agent the teams that have signed players in free agency. And I mean, I don't know any team that has the cap space really to sign Kawhi Leonard, that has the money to sign Kawhi Leonard. And I mean, Kawhi Leonard, he grew up in LA. He wanted to play in LA. So I mean, why would he leave the Clippers? He's in LA. That team has Paul George. That team has Serge Ibaka. The team has players. And I mean, if Kawhi Leonard can come back healthy, I mean, that team is a pretty good team. And I remember when Kawhi came with Paul George, people considered them they're going to win the finals. I mean, I remember Skip Bayless and even most ESPN, all the people in the sports world, they said when Kawhi came and PG in that team, they're like, Kawhi and PG, the Clippers are winning the finals. So that team has potential, and they definitely are a playoff team. So I don't think Kawhi's going to leave. I don't think Kawhi's going to leave LA. And I mean, he grew up in LA. He wanted to play for LA. So I think he's going to stay in LA this year. So moving on to the next topic, is Chris Paul signed a 4-year, $120 million contract with the Suns. He took the Suns to the finals last year. So what's your thoughts on this contract?
Yeah, I mean, obviously at face value, you look at it and you say, okay, this contract's going to take him into his 40s. So, it sounds like a lot of money, but as far as, he's looking, I'm happy for him that he got the contract. I think the Suns needed to do it. He brought so much leadership to the team. The guys really love him there. Devin Booker, who is their, superstar, loves having Chris Paul there. DeAndre Ayton is, their up and coming guy who's really good as well. Loves playing there. They're pretty much running it back with all the same guys that they made it to the finals with this year. So, I don't know how good the contract is going to look in a couple of years, but as of right now, you had to bring him back. He did opt out. So the only way to bring him back is to, sign him to what he's looking for. And he getting $30 million a year. He's one of the best point guards ever in the history of the NBA. You got to pay him what he's worth. And, I expect the Suns to be tough next season. They got all those young guys got a full, off season of or a full playoff run all the way to the finals. I'm sure they've learned a lot. I'm sure they're going to want to get back there. And Chris Paul obviously is determined to win a ring before he retires. And he basically believes his best chances with the Suns. And so, he re-upped for 4 years. So I know you hate it, but I'm not too mad at it. This is what they had to do for the Suns.
I mean, I don't hate this contract. I don't hate this deal. But if I'm Chris Paul, I'm like, the Suns aren't giving you the best chance to win a ring. I mean, as much as you want to think about it, look at what the Lakers did this free agency. The Lakers added so many players. Kawhi is coming back next year. In my opinion, the Suns making it to the finals was a fluke. Same thing with the Bucks. I mean, I don't think the Bucks should have gone to the Nets if Harden and Kyrie were healthy. And same thing with the Suns. I don't think they would have beaten the Lakers with a healthy LeBron James and a fully healthy Anthony Davis and a fully healthy Andre Drummond. I mean, I don't think they would have beaten the Suns. I don't think they would have beaten the Lakers either. So I personally think it was a fluke. I get that they're paying him a lot of money, and I mean, he's definitely valuable to the Suns because he took them to the finals. I mean, he's the most valuable player for the Suns. But if I'm Chris Paul, I'm like, the Suns aren't giving me the best chance to win a ring.
Where else would he be able to go? He couldn't go to the Lakers. Lakers traded for Russ.
I was trying to take a pay cut to win a ring, honestly.
Where would he go though? What team would have him?
LA
gave him. LA is paying $40 million a year for Russ. They're not gonna be able to sign him.
Dude, so many players are taking before DeRozan and those guys. Kyle, I mean, Carmelo Anthony was willing to take a pay cut to play with the Lakers.
Yeah, but Carmelo Anthony and Chris Paul are in two different situations in their life. CP3 is still.
CP3 still wants to win a ring, though, right? CP3 is still.
He just went to the finals last season, bro. He just went to the finals last season. In your mind, but that's not accurate. Like, at the end of the day, he just went to the finals last season. He loves the team that he's in. He's getting paid $30 million. The veteran minimum is something like $1 or $2 million. So to take a $28 million pay cut on it, I don't think is just. Would you take a $28 million pay cut for any? Like, to go to a situation which is just as up in the air as a situation where you're getting paid $30 million that just made it to the finals.
At his age, you don't have that much more time to play the game of basketball. He doesn't have a ring.
He has 4 more years.
He doesn't have a ring. That's what I'm saying. The Suns.
I'm saying he has. But you keep saying the Suns aren't going to be making it, he's not a fan. He's a player.
The Suns are the playoff team. But what are the odds that the Suns win rather let's make it to the finals, but win the finals? Please tell me. What are the odds the Suns make it to the finals?
The odds, whatever the odds were last season, they made it. They were the number 2 ranked team. They made it to the finals.
Because LeBron James and Anthony Davis were injured.
It still happened. It still happened.
But it was a fluke. I mean, it was a fluke.
Things happen in the NBA.
And even moving beyond that, will Chris Paul win a ring in Phoenix? Please. Will Chris Paul win a team? Will win a ring in Phoenix with a healthy Los Angeles Lakers team, with the Kawhi coming back next year, with that Clippers team? Will they win a ring next year or even make it to the finals?
I don't think so, but I don't think so. But
you don't think so, though, right? You don't think so, right?
Yeah, but I'm a fan. He's a fan. You're a fan. He's a player. He doesn't think that He doesn't think that he just saw himself be able to take this team to the finals, right? So as a player, as a competitor, he doesn't look at these other teams as teams that he can't beat. He just beat them. He just saw he went through the Lakers. He went through the Clippers. He was 2 games away from winning a chip. In his mind, he thinks he's on the right team. And I think that, more power to him, man. He has one of the best guards in the backcourt with him. And
in my opinion, he didn't re-sign with the Suns because he logically thinks they're gonna take him to the finals. I know he's high on the Suns, and I think he thinks the Suns can make the finals. But the main reason why he signed with the Suns is because look at what they're offering him: a 4-year and $120 million contract. I mean, name me one other team that's gonna give him a $120 million contract at his age. The reason why Chris Paul re-signed with the Suns is because they're giving him that money. Does he have the best shot to win a final, get a ring with the Suns? No. Obviously, the Lakers or the Nets will be a better choice. But why did
the Lakers and the Nets weren't bringing him in, bro? Like you're talking hypotheticals. It's not the actuality was the Lakers and the Nets weren't options. Miami Heat wasn't an option. Milwaukee isn't an option. What team does he have a better chance at winning a chip with that was willing to take him? Exactly. He's on the best opportunity that he has, and he's getting paid 4 years, $120 million to do it. There's no other team that he has a better chance. Name the teams that you think have a chance at winning the championship. You said the Lakers, Russ Westbrook. They already have a point guard. You said the Clippers. There's no way they could bring in Chris Paul. They don't have enough money. Miami, they just signed Kyle Lowry for $20 million a year. Milwaukee, Drew Holiday, there's not an opportunity. Golden State, they already have Steph. There's no opportunity. What team is there that he could have gone to that has your opportunity to win a chip? There is none. He's on the team that gives him the best chance that is available.
Okay, well, I just think he mainly re-signed with the Suns is because he's getting that $120 million contract. I mean, he just doesn't have the best shot to win with the Suns. That's just my opinion. I mean, no. Moving on to the next topic. This one got a little bit of heat. This got a little bit heated, but it
didn't get heated. You just wrong. I mean, you keep saying these things without having anything to back it up. You're like, he has a better chance to win with another team. Then I said, what team could he have gone to that he had a better chance? And you can't think of one.
Does Philly have cash space? I don't know, really, because I don't really follow.
Philly has Ben Simmons, so they either trade him for
Simmons. Okay, Ben Simmons. If he stays on Philly, that's because another team doesn't want Ben Simmons. But if they find a trade partner for Ben Simmons gone. I don't even think. Speaking of Ben Simmons, bro. Ben Simmons, I heard he typed in your chat one day. Ben Simmons should play for the Shanghai Sharks next year. Ben Simmons, I'm done with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons performed so poorly last year in the playoffs. I mean, Ben Simmons is good at defense. I mean, he's an amazing defender. He just can't score. He has no offensive game whatsoever. He can't shoot. I mean, he's been in the NBA. In basketball, you have to be able to shoot. I mean, that's what it is. Like, if you're a quarterback and you can't throw, then you can't play quarterback. Same thing with Ben Simmons. If you're playing point guard and you can't shoot the ball at all whatsoever, like, he has no jump shot whatsoever. He can't even make a free throw. So, Ben
Well,
Simmons,
first of all, Ben Simmons is a lot better than you're giving him credit for. You're right. He doesn't know how to shoot, but to say he has no offensive game is nuts. That
No,
dude
I
could
never
take it
said
to
he
the
had no
hoop.
offensive game.
Hey, this is on video. We'll rewind it. You're verbatim just said he has no offensive game.
No offensive game.
All right, we'll rewind it. We'll rewind it. What are we betting? I mean, what are we betting that you did it? That you just said?
Can't shoot the ball.
What are we betting? What are we betting that you did say that he has no offensive game?
He just can't shoot the ball. Okay. He just can't shoot the ball.
He's great at distributing. He's a great passer, great defender, great at defending, good distributor of the ball. He can't shoot. You're right. Everybody knows he can't shoot, but that doesn't mean he's not valuable. I think he stays with the 76ers. They're asking for way too much for him. No team's going to give up what they're trying to give up, knowing that he's on the market. So I think they're just going to have to run it back with that squad and wait another year before they decide to do something with them.
Well, if there was one guy that can help Ben Simmons, it's obviously Doc Rivers. Because I mean, Doc Rivers, I remember one.
No, he can't. Doc Rivers is one of the trashiest coaches in all the land in the NBA.
Okay. Doc Rivers, when he was playing, and he was also not the best shooter at his time, and whatever. In 1990, I remember he played for the Hawks at one time. He was not his free throw and his shooting percentage was like 26% from free throw, and then next season he stepped it up. So there's one guy that he shot from like 80 that one season from free throw. The next season after, so this is one guy that can help Ben Simmons out. It definitely will be Doc Rivers, but Ben Simmons, I'm not trying to say that he has no offensive game. But he just can't shoot. I mean, he reminds me a lot like Giannis, like Kobe Ransom said, right? He can drive, he can do those things. He's a good passer, a good defender. He just can't shoot whatsoever. Absolutely, he just can't. And I mean, when you're paying a guy, he's been getting paid like $100 million, I think, right?
Of course.
Right? I mean, he's a good defender and stuff, but I mean, in basketball, you have to be able to shoot. I mean, unless you're a guy like
Giannis shoot?
Unless you're a guy like Giannis. I just said, unless you're a guy like Giannis. But that's one player. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Otherwise, no player right now in the NBA outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo can score points and be a help to his team without shooting the ball. Outside of Giannis, I mean, no other player can score.
I think Ben Simmons is just playing. The team's asking him to play the wrong thing. He's more like Draymond Green. Or Giannis. He needs to be a guy that is like the point forward, shouldn't be the point guard, and then you just surround him with shooters and he just have him go to the rim, distribute to other people. But like Kobe also said, Kobe Ransom, he just lost his confidence, so he just needs to get his confidence back.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with you that he shouldn't be playing point guard. I mean, but they did try a little bit this year. I forgot who the GM of the 76ers, but they bring in guys like Danny Green and Seth Curry, bring in some shooters for that Sixers team. So they're trying to work on that. But Ben Simmons definitely needs to improve his shooting game. I even forgot what we were talking about before, but let's move on to another Eastern Conference team who signed Kyle Lowry to a 3-year, $90 million sign-and trade. Miami Heat signed Kyle Lowry. So what's your thoughts on this deal?
A perfect fit. I mean, Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler are like best friends. I think they've been trying to play with each other for a long time. Miami needed a point guard that year that they made it to the finals 2 years ago. Dragic obviously played a big role in that. I think it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Jimmy Butler so that he could stay more fresh and then be that fourth quarter closer that he's so good at. I think he's going to make Bam a better player. Obviously Duncan is going to get a lot easier shots, and I mean and then they also picked up PJ Tucker, who obviously just is coming off of a championship as a starter, so he'll probably play that 4. So you got Lowry, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker, and Bam as your starting 5. That's a pretty formidable starting 5. I think they're easily the 3rd best team in the East. And if everything breaks right, they're going to be a strong defensive presence, and they're going to contend with guys like the Bucks, guys like the Nets, because that mentality that Butler has is the same mentality that Kyle Lowry has, and you have 2 of those guys that don't think that they're anybody's better than them. Those guys can can create a lot of damage. So I love this move. Once again, $30 million a year, just like Chris Paul got, and well deserving, man. Kyle Lowry is a beast, and I'm glad that he's going to a team where he has a chance to contend again.
Yeah. Kyle Lowry already has a ring, unlike Chris Paul. So I am not against this signing. I'm happy with this signing. Getting $30 million a year. I mean, perfect fit, just like you said. And he's been to the finals before. Same thing with the Heat. So that's also a thing that he'll add, that veteran experience to that Heat team. And I mean, it's like that starting five. Duncan Robinson, they just re-signed to a 5-year, $90 million. And he's an amazing shooter, 3-point shooter, amazing 3-point shooter. Jimmy Buckets, you re-signed. We're going to talk about him right after Kyle Lowry. Bam Adebayo, amazing center. Top 5 in some people, top 10 in the league center. And I mean, that team is just stacked. So, I mean, Kyle Lowry, I definitely agree with you. They're a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. And I definitely can see them next year contending with teams like the Bucks and the Nets and the 76ers. So I'm very happy with this move. So I think it's a great move for the Heat. Moving on to another Heat signing. Speak of the devil, we were just talking about this guy. Jimmy Buckets signed a 4-year, $186 million contract with the Heat. What's your thoughts on this signing?
I mean, you got to. Jimmy Butler is one of the best players in the league. I think he's the most underrated player in the league. Wherever he goes, that team just plays better. They start winning. I know he has a bad like reputation for some reason, but I think he's just fiery. He plays hard. He's one of my favorite players in the league.
Yep.
So yeah, I love that he's getting paid. I think that team is going to be amazing, and they would actually be somebody who I wouldn't be surprised makes it to the finals out of the East. Once again, as long as everybody stays healthy. But I think they'll match up pretty well against the Nets. They're a really good defensive team. You got Jimmy Butler guarding Harden, you got Lowry guarding Kyrie, and you got Bam guarding Kevin Durant. You have bodies that could guard some of these top players. So I think it'd be a really great matchup if they end up meeting somewhere in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, you had to resign Jimmy Butler. I mean, Jimmy Butler is one of the most important players to the Heat. And, I mean, now that team is stacked all around, especially with Jimmy Butler being signed for 4 years. I mean, he grew up homeless. And this is, I think, his first $100 million contract, if I remember correctly. Right? I don't know if he got a $100 million contract before. But I think this is his first $100 million contract. And, I mean, he does have that bad rap because of what happened in the Timberwolves. If you remember what happened with the Timberwolves, that he wasn't happy with his team. He wasn't happy with his coaches. So that was one thing, but you have to resign Jimmy Butler, especially if you were the Heat. You had to resign Jimmy Butler. So I'm happy they got the deal done. So it was a great move for the Heat. And now the Heat have a pretty darn good squad. And just like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if they make the finals because that team is really good defensively. You have a guy like PJ Tucker, Kyle Lowry, Bam Adebayo, you re-signed Duncan Robinson. So yeah, you definitely have to re-sign Jimmy Butler, and they got it done. So good for the Heat. Moving on to what some people say is the younger version of Stephen Curry, we got Trae Young signed a 5-year, $205 million contract with the Atlanta Hawks. What's your thoughts on this thing?
I mean, he was one of the best players in the playoffs last season. Nobody expected Atlanta to go as far as they did. Trae Young showed out pretty much every game. And when he was showing out, they were winning. They beat teams they weren't supposed to beat. He's one of the most clutch players in the NBA last season. I think he'll continue to show why he's so clutch. I mean, this is a no-brainer. He's, one of the top guys, going to be the face of the league, in the next few years when LeBron steps down, and, he's going to be one of those guys that's vying for the face of the league. He's deserving of a contract like this. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he breaks Steph Curry's record of $200 million contracts. He's only 22. He'll be 27, probably sign another $200 million deal for 4 or 5 years. And then, he'll be 32, 33, same as Steph, maybe sign another $200 million deal. So, we're talking about, the future of the league. it's in good hands with Trey.
Yeah, but I mean that tells you like Curry's getting a second $2 million contract now. I mean, Trey's getting in. It's only like his third or fourth year in the league. Third year, I think, right? Fourth year in the league, right? So
Yes.
Trey's getting it so early. While Curry, it took a while, but that's showing that the league is developing and changing a lot. But Trey Young definitely deserved this contract. I mean, none of us expected the Hawks to. Some people didn't have them even making the playoffs. I mean, I didn't expect the Hawks to make the playoffs this year, and they did, and they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, they were this close to making it to the finals. So the Hawks, he definitely deserved the contract, and I mean the games that Trae Young balled down had those 30 to 40 point games. The Hawks won, and the games that he couldn't put up those numbers, they lost. But the games that he did put up those numbers, they won, and nobody expected the Hawks to make it to the playoffs, rather less make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they did. And the main part was that because Trae Young was balling out for the Hawks, so Trae Young definitely deserved the contract. And I mean, they're building young pieces in Atlanta. They drafted DeAndre Hunter, they drafted Cam Reddish, Clint Capella as your center. I mean, they have young talent all around the board. And the Hawks, if those players develop like Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, I could see them as finals contender 3 or 4 years down the line because they're building a young team that will only get better with guys like Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter. Well, they'll be developing every year. So yeah, that team is young and they have a lot of potential. So
Accurate.
thank you. Finally, first nice thing Sunil said about me tonight. So I think we covered basically most of the player re-signing and stuff like that. We didn't get into big details of players signing the new teams because there hasn't been that many big players signing the new teams. We could cover them like Lowry and stuff like that. But since we wrapped up some of the players, who are the winners so far in free agency?
So I think there's a few. Obviously, we mentioned Miami, and we also mentioned the Lakers, who I think definitely solidified their team and are going to be much better than they were last season due to what they did this free agency. But I think the team that's going to make the biggest jump due to the moves that they made, we talked about it off camera, is the Chicago Bulls. I think that this is 2 years in coming. Last season, they traded for a guy like Nikola Vucevic from Orlando, who was one of the best centers in the league. They already had Zach LaVine there as that 1-2 punch. Bringing in a guy like Lonzo, I think solidifies that. Bringing in a guy like DeMar DeRozan, I think they're adding a lot of just talent to the team. They already have a lot of good young talent. A guy like Alex Caruso, I think, is a great sixth man that's going to be coming off the bench, give you some great defense, give you some great energy. I mean, I really like what they've done. I think they are going to be a team that finishes in the top 6 probably in the East just because of all of the talent that they brought. You're talking about a starting lineup that's going to have Alonzo at the 1, DeMar at the 2, LaVine at the 3, at the 4. They could put whomever, whether it's Aminu or Thaddeus Young, and then Vucevic at the 5. That's already one of the top 6 lineups in the East. And I think that they're gonna make the biggest jump as far as the most wins based off of the what they brought in this offseason.
Well, I 100% agree with you. It's definitely the Bulls. And obviously, another obvious choice is the Lakers because I mean, what the Lakers are doing in free agency. I mean, every 10 minutes I see a tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski on my phone, and Lakers are signing all these players. Obviously, the Lakers are one of them, but mainly it's definitely the Bulls. And I mean, what the Bulls did in free agency, you bring in a guy like Lonzo, amazing defender, amazing passer. He did pretty darn good last year when he could play on the floor. He did miss some games last year, but when he played, he was a good player for the Pelicans team. You bring in a guy like Alex Caruso, and I mean, Alex Caruso, I mean, people love Alex Caruso. I mean, he's not the best player, but he's still valuable to a team like the Bulls. And you bring in a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who still last year was 30 years old and still gave you 21 points per game. You have LaVine, you have Vucevic. Your starting 5 is set. And I mean, you have young talent on the bench like Kobe Williams and Patrick Williams and Kobe White. So you have talent on the bench. I mean, what the Bulls did this free agency was amazing for them. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a playoff team next year and they're a contender in the playoffs. Because I mean, what you did with all those players, I mean, it definitely goes with what Chicago's trying to do. And is it going to be the first time in a couple of years that Chicago makes the playoffs? So the Bulls are definitely the winners in free agency so far. So obviously we talked about the winners. So now let's talk about the losers. Who are the losers of NBA free agency so far?
Got you. So it's tough to say who the losers are because free agency still isn't done, and there's a lot of big names that are still out there that can
That's why I
be,
said so far, Suneil. That's why I
right.
said
So
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 far.
far, so the way that I am looking at this are teams that we expected to get better based off of their situation, right? So there's two teams that I would look at that I think um, didn't make moves that they needed to move themselves into that next level. And in the West, that'll be the Dallas Mavericks, and on the East, that's going to be the New York Knicks. And I want to go specifically with the New York Knicks. You know, they obviously had a lot of cap room coming in. They just had a really great season last season where they overachieved. They have some good talent there in RG Barrett and Julius Randle. So you expected them to really make a splash move to bring in one of these big name free agents, especially at point guard, to really be able to solidify that team and help them take that next leap into the next realm, I guess, of that next tier in the East. And they didn't. The biggest thing they brought back Derrick Rose, which obviously did well for them last season, but he's not like a wow move. And then they spent their money on Evan Fournier, who obviously played well in the Olympics, but he's a guy that
$8 million contract. I mean,
right. So, I mean, I think that the Knicks are probably going to go heavy at a guy like Dame. And if they get Dame Lillard over there, then obviously this changes because I think then all of a sudden they go from one of the losers to the winners. And then the other team, like I said, with Dallas, they're on the brink. They obviously they brought back in Tim Hardaway Jr., who had a big season last season. They have a new coach over there and Jason Kidd that I think is going to help the team play better. They brought back Boban, but they haven't made that move to really bring in a number 2 option for Dallas. They're really hoping that Porzingis is going to be that guy. But I think Luka needs like a really good 2 to be there. And I don't know if Hardaway is that guy. I don't know if Porzingis is that guy. And I don't know who exactly was out there that they could bring in, but I think that other teams got better and Dallas stayed the same, which obviously is going to make them kind of drop just by process of elimination.
Now, I'm going to choose a different answer from you because if we just agree on everything, it's not fun. But I'm going to go with the team that I don't think you're going to be happy with what I say, but I'm saying the Utah Jazz. And the reason I'm saying the Utah Jazz are the losers of NBA free agency so far is that, I mean, you look at what the Lakers have done. The Lakers have added so many pieces. The Clippers are also, if they have Kawhi, that team is also a playoff contender. Jamal Murray's coming back to the Nuggets. That team's also a very good team. I mean, the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell's an amazing player. I mean, especially playoff time, Donovan Mitchell will step up to the challenge and he will elevate his game in playoff time compared to the regular season. But the West is getting harder. And I mean, last year there was a number 1 seed. But I mean, you look at last year, my cousin's a Jazz fan. Shout out my cousin. When the Jazz didn't have Donovan Mitchell, I mean, they were losing regular season game. And I remember one time my cousin called me. He's like, dude, we don't have Donovan Mitchell. We're losing to the Timberwolves. And I'm like, no, you're joking, right? I look and they're getting blown out by the Timberwolves. And I mean, if the Jazz really want to be a playoff or a contender, I mean, they're obviously a playoff team. But if you really want to be a finals contender and win a ring in Utah, you got to bring in players. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley. I mean, you re-signed Mike Conley, which isn't a bad signing. But you got to do more. You definitely got to do more if you want to win the ring. And that's what every team's goal is at the beginning of the season. And if Donovan Mitchell gets injured, I mean, your season's gone. Your season is gone with Donovan Mitchell injured. We saw it last year. I mean, they were losing to the Timberwolves. On back-to-back nights, they were losing to the Timberwolves without Donovan Mitchell. So, I mean, you really got to do more with, the Lakers are stepping up, and these guys are adding players. if you want, if I'm a Jazz, if I'm the Jazz and I want to win a ring next year, I definitely gotta add some pieces. So I just think they haven't done enough to add those pieces and step up. So I'm going with the Utah Jazz. And I mean, outside of free agency, I personally think they gotta make a trade for a guy like Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard. I mean, they have the assets. You could trade a player like Gobert or someone like that. You trade a player, and you gotta bring in a guy like Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal if you want to be finals contenders and be a contender and win a ring this year. Because you obviously gotta do it. I mean, Lakers, like I said, the Lakers are getting better. The Clippers with Kawhi, I mean, that team's obviously gonna make the playoffs, and that team can make a deep run if Kawhi and that team can stay healthy. And Paul George, I mean, he did way better than he did. He did way better last year in the playoffs than he did the year before in the bubble. So I mean, the West is only gonna get better. Jamal Murray's also coming back, and they just gotta do more if they want to win the finals and even make.
I agree. I
They got,
agree. Utah is just a regular season team. They don't do too
yeah,
well in the
there
playoffs.
is that regular season team, and I mean, I get that they re-signed Mike Conley, but I mean, let's look at if Jamal Murray comes back. Okay, Jamal Murray comes back to the Nuggets, and they're in the first round matchup. The same team was there in 20 and when they were in the bubble than what they were now. I mean, they didn't really do anything different. So you had to go up against the Nuggets, and you if you lose to the Nuggets, I mean, that's your fault because you didn't add any pieces. And I mean, if you want to go into the next rounds and go, imagine if they beat the Nuggets or they beat the Clippers, you're gonna have to go up against the Lakers, and there is no way in hell you're beating a healthy Lakers team. There is no way in hell you're beating a healthy Lakers team if you have a healthy roster and you have to go up against Russ and LeBron and AD in that stacked bench. There's no way you're beating the Lakers. So you definitely got to do more if I'm Utah. So I'm saying the Utah Jazz. Well, you got anything to say?
Nah, I think that's a good pick.
Well, that basically wraps up our show. Thank you for joining me, Sunil. Please, before you guys go, and if you guys are still watching, go subscribe to Sunil's channel and go follow Sunil on Twitter. The links are down below in the description. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Like the video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I appreciate all you guys watching. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.